Welcome to Long Island ESOL Symposium, Beyond the Plateau, Accelerating Growth for Long-Term English Learners. I'd like to welcome our Dean, Dr. Melissa McCardle, to join us for a welcome this morning. Dr. McCardle?
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. And welcome to the 25th annual Long Island ESOL Symposium. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome each of you for what promises to be an exceptional day of professional learning and collaboration. Whether you're joining us from Long Island, from across New York State, or from around the world, this is truly a milestone celebration for us. It's very exciting. As Dean of Molloy University School of Education and Human Services, I have the distinct privilege of witnessing firsthand the transformative impact our faculty have on the field of multilingual learner education, not just here on Long Island, but nationally and even internationally. The work happening in our TESOL programs extends far beyond our campus walls, and this symposium is a perfect example of that reach and that influence. What you're participating in today represents something truly special in the world of educator professional development. The symposium has become a space where practitioners, researchers, and advocates come together to tackle the most pressing issues and challenges facing multilingual learners today. The conversations that are going to happen here today, the strategies that are shared, and the connections that will be built will have ripple effects that I believe will touch classrooms across the globe. I'm particularly grateful for the dedication of our TESOL faculty who make events like this possible. These are individuals who don't just teach about best practices, but they actively create the knowledge base that moves our field forward. Their scholarship, their participation, their partnerships in school districts across the region, and their commitment to supporting educators like you truly reflects the Molloy University mission, which is grounded in transformative education with deep respect for each and every individual. So I want to thank Dr. Carrie McDermott Goldman, Dr. Maria Dove, Dr. Jackie Nenshin, and Dr. Andrea Honigsfeld for your unwavering dedication to multilingual learners and for the remarkable impact that each of you has had on this field over the past 25 years. To everyone here today, whether you're a classroom teacher, an administrator, a university faculty member, thank you for being here and for prioritizing professional growth that is going to benefit the students you serve. I truly believe that the time you invest today in deepening your knowledge and expanding your toolkit will make a real difference in the lives of multilingual learners. So I'm very excited for the learning ahead and honored that you've chosen to spend your day with us. So please enjoy the symposium. And now I will turn it back over to Dr. Carrie McDermott Goldman.
Thank you, Dean McCardle, for that warm welcome. We're so excited to have you here today. I'm thrilled to share a bit of history about how we arrived at this incredible milestone. 25 years ago, in 2001, Dr. Andrea Honigsfeld launched what began as a one-day mini area conference in partnership with New York State TESOL. That single day of professional learning planted the seeds for what would become Long Island ESOL Conference, an annual gathering held in person at Molloy University that brought together educators from across the region to share best practices and build community around supporting multilingual learners. When the pandemic arrived in 2020, our team and I faced a choice: pause this vital work or reimagine it entirely. We chose transformation. We moved our in-person conference to an online symposium format, and what happened next exceeded our wildest expectations. Our reach expanded exponentially. Today, we welcome participants not just from Long Island or New York State, but from across the United States and around the world. Educators from multiple continents join us each year, creating a truly global community of practice dedicated to multilingual learner success. This year's theme, Beyond the Plateau, Accelerating Growth for Long-Term English Learners, addresses one of the most critical challenges in our field. Long-term Ls deserve our focused attention, our innovative strategies, and our unwavering commitment to their academic and linguistic growth. Today's sessions will equip you with research-based practical approaches to move multilingual learners forward. Before we dive in, I wanted to extend my deepest gratitude to our presenters who have generously prepared to share their expertise, to our planning team who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make today possible, and to each of you for choosing to invest your time in professional learning that will directly impact the lives of multilingual learners in your classrooms and schools around the world. Let me walk you through our schedule for this morning. So today we've given the introduction and overview. We have our keynote speakers who will be joining us. Then we'll move into our Ignite session, our workshops, 1 and 2. There'll be a little bit of a transition time between both. We'll have a Q&A, closing remarks, and then a raffle. And now, I'm absolutely honored and delighted to introduce our keynote speakers. Tan Huynh. Tan is a secondary school teacher specializing in English language acquisition, an author, podcaster, and consultant. He has taught students from 5th to 10th grade in domestic, public, private, and charter schools. While most of his experience has been serving in international schools, he also taught social studies and currently spends much of his days co-planning and co-teaching. Tan is trained in sheltered instruction, WIDA, culturally responsive instruction, international baccalaureate middle years programs, and the collaborative instructional cycle. Tan shares his application of research-based strategies on his blog, podcast, and online courses with the hopes of celebrating teachers who answer the calling to serve multilingual learners. He holds a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and specializing in language acquisition. You can learn more about his work at tankhyun.com, which is also on the program. Sabrina, if you could put that in the chat, that would be very helpful. I also wanted to let you know that Tan is joining us from Cambodia today. His co-presenter is Beth Skelton. Beth has over 30 years of experience as a language educator and holds a master's degree in multicultural teacher education. She has worked with early childhood, elementary, middle, high school, and adult language learners in rural, urban, suburban, and international school settings. She is the co-author of Long-Term Success for Experienced Multilinguals, a best-selling book published by Corwin, and putting it together, materials for teaching adult English learners using a story-based curriculum. She is an active board member of Colorado TESOL. Beth currently provides professional development, coaching, and consulting with schools worldwide, focused on providing equitable education for multilingual learners. You can learn more about her work at bethskelton.com. So, Tan and Beth, I'd like to turn it over to you. We're very excited to hear what you have to share with us from Plateau to the summit.
Well, it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much. If you can't see my screen, please let me know. I just want to say hello to all the teachers from around the world, but in particular, teachers from Laos, China, and I saw one from Italy as well. So lots of
Morocco,
international.
Italy, Japan,
Morocco,
Beijing,
yes.
Shanghai, Laos. Thank you all for being here from around the world, from New York to Washington State, where it is very early in the morning, and all in between. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Molloy for expanding your reach worldwide.
So you already gave us an introduction. So we'll just go very quickly into the presentation.
Our guiding questions for this presentation are really the who and the what. Who are these students that this symposium is about, the so-called long-term English learners, or as Tan and I would prefer to say, experienced multilinguals. We're going to talk a little bit about who this subgroup of multilingual learners are, because they are one of the largest subgroups in many, many districts. And then we'll get into what instruction, the literacy instruction particularly, many of these experienced multilinguals actually have in schools, because Tan and I are in schools all over the US and the world, watching that instruction, supporting that instruction, and hopefully shifting that instruction. And then finally, we're going to look at what can explicit English language development instruction look like? And when we were reading the chat of your role and where you're from, the vast majority are in that role to actually offer that explicit English language development instruction. Thanks, Tan. We can move on to that first guiding question. Who are these long-term English learners or experienced multilinguals? Please get your chat fingers ready. We're going to do a little bit of an interactive, who are they? What are the characteristics of experienced multilinguals? So first is a number. You can just drop it in the chat. These are multilingual learners who have enrolled in US or international schools for a certain number of years, and they haven't reached academic fluency. The US government requires us to classify them as a subgroup after a certain number of years. And I'm seeing different numbers come in. Each state in the US has a different cutoff. Great. And the numbers are exactly what we would say, Tan, if you could reveal. It's 5 to 7, although Anne is saying 4. That I have seen as well in some states across the US. It's sometimes like when your funding runs out, but you know that you still have to serve them because they haven't yet exited the program. So that's one characteristic of this group, so that they've been in our schools for a long time. They generally have highly developed social language, and you can reveal that one, Tan, is that social language, they sound great. And this is why this group is particularly tricky for many of our educators, is that they sound so fluent. Well, they've been here for 5 to 7 years. They've been in our schools that long. But the next bullet point, get your chat fingers ready. They tend to have underdeveloped academic. Jana is the speedy one, dropped it right in there. Gloria's got it. Underdeveloped academic language. We are going to be focusing on what that academic language is and how to explicitly develop it. And then finally, Tan, this, not quite finally, but this is either the smallest or the largest group of MLs, of multilingual learners in many, many districts. You've got it. It is the largest B. So you can reveal that one. Many districts, it's 80% of the students between 4th grade and up to 12th grade. This is the subgroup that we're really focused on. And this group, they have experience learning in English. Tanya, you can reveal that last slide. They really do have experience. They know how to learn in English. So translation kind of ideas, while it's not wrong and translanguaging can still work, these are not newcomers. So we're not just, here's the text in another language. They may not read or write in their heritage language at this stage because they may not have been in a dual language program. So we really have to think differently about this subgroup of students. Thanks. You can go on, Tom. Thank you. And this is
Our
where
presentation, I remember the theme, the session title for the theme is about Beyond the Plateau. And we're like, great, let's use that imagery, because we often talk about long-term Ls as plateauing. They get stuck. They're not progressing, right? So before we get there, let's start with how did they come to us? Many of them come newcomers, and they're saying things like, we're asking them, what letter begins the word plateau? Plateau. Point to the flat part of the plateau. These are the newcomers who we're working with. This session is not for those students, right? Those students graduate from becoming a newcomer, and then because they have social language, they say things like mountains have pointy tops. Plateaus are flat at the top. Very simple, basic sentences. Content-based and very simple. And we see this rapid growth of newcomers from like saying P and L. What sound does that make? P and L? to then saying like, can you read the sentence? Mountains have pointy tops. Very quick to growth. But what happens is they stop growing and they struggle to say and read things like this. While mountains have triangular or round peaks, plateaus have flat, extended tops. It's the same thing as a social language student would be saying, but they struggle to read that and then struggle to produce writing at that level. So Dr. Cummings shared with us, and I know somebody in the group chat wrote about BICS, and they said, yes, basic interpersonal communication, we call that social skills. It's things that they can point to, say, friends, informal interaction that is like very tangible. And that's why they can grow in 2 years. But it takes them 5 to 7 years with explicit instruction to learn cognitive academic language proficiency. Okay? So here's a picture of me when I was in 6th grade. You could tell because of the raging pimple on my head, on my nose. And there are lots of assets that I had. Here are the assets that I had. Can you, I'm going to go through one and then you're going to go type in, please tell me what's an asset. And Beth, you can read out loud. So let's look at the first asset. Or we're going to call, we call LTELs experienced multilinguals because they have assets. I only attended U.S. public schools. I love kindergarten so much they made me go twice. And then why have I attended all of my schooling in a U.S. public school by the time I was in 5th grade? Why is that an asset?
Yeah, so Alice is giving us, you're familiar with the routines and the expectations. We don't have to show Ton how to get to the cafeteria or, what a bus is like. You're familiar with the language, at least in a social context. You understand how the school system works and know how to navigate that. You know how to be a student, right? And you learn those foundational skills.
Perfect. Let's look at the next one. By 5th grade, when I entered 5th grade, I exited ESL finally. From the ELD services because I spoke fluent social English. I could decode almost every single word, a multisyllabic word. If it's like 4 syllables, that would be a little bit harder, especially words that have the Y in between. Oh my goodness, or the PH, that was hard. I could write full sentences and paragraphs, and I could speak socially. So why is this an asset?
And Tan, there's some more that came in about your education wasn't interrupted if you attended U.S. public schools straight through. It was talking about the connections that you established in community. You were able to do everything from listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and you had learned that in the U.S. schools. You had reading fluency that developed your vocabulary so you could continue to grow. You had a strong foundation that you could build on. You had access to class content. Once you exited ELD, you were in mainstream classes all the way through. You were familiar with both academic and social and you were exposed to the US like culture and language right from the beginning, and you understood phonics. So these are all coming in as assets that are illustrated by those 2 bullet points about Tan's history.
Right. So now I didn't put this in the slide, but I want to ask you, reflect on my experience only being in the US schools or many years in the US schools, be having social English. To what extent, how 1 to 5 being like very similar, how are my assets similar to your students' assets? 1 being like not at all similar, 5 being like, yes, very similar. Let's see the chat.
There's a lot of 5s coming in, 3s in the middle. Some are saying not at all. We've got some 2s. People that have interrupted formal education definitely would be on a different end. So you really have the gamut, Ton, everybody from 2s or not at all to all the way up to that's exactly who my students were at the 5.
Perfect. Even if it's far, your students will need to move from social language to academic English, and we'll share with that. So let's look at the second question. What type of literacy instruction do many experienced multilinguals typically encounter in schools? So let me take you to my 5th grade class. I still remember my teacher saying, we're going to read The Island of the Blue Dolphins. And I was like, that girl has a fierce dress. Yes, let's read that book. right? I remember her having us sit in circles and read, and she would read to us, and we were taken away by the book, and it's so fun. Then she would have us stop and act a few scenes out. I remember her asking us to do lots of sticky notes. In particular, she said, anytime you see an animal, like put a sticky note and draw that animal. Right? And I remember our final project. I actually don't remember the final project. I think we just moved on to the other one. But I've seen other people at every end of the book, every end of the book, there's always a project, some diorama. This is one I found online. Like, go create a scene from the Island of the Blue Dolphins. Can you list some other literacy activities you've seen to work to develop multilingual's academic language?
And I'll just read out so people can hear. Close as in like reading it with a blank and putting in that sentence stems. We've seen some Google slide presentations, writing a summary or summarizing verbally, building a lot of background knowledge, doing a book report, role playing, turn and talk with partners, acting it out, chunking and reading small parts, comparing book to movie, doing a comic strip of the key events, using thinking maps, vocabulary notebooks, pre-teaching the vocabulary, graphic organizers, creating a book trailer, creating a movie of the favorite part, using total physical response, creating sketch notes, word walls, discussion circles about the book. So lots and lots and lots of literacy activities coming through.
Fabulous. And today we're going to do all of those, and we're going to add one strategy for you to work with. And that goes with our question number 3, which is, what can explicit ELD instruction look like? These are some of my students that I've worked with, and they're doing the exact same procedure we're going to share with you today. So my question first is, go ahead.
No, it's like, how can we explicitly teach language and content? And the graphic that we're about to show, this loop, comes from the second book that's coming out, and we're doing a raffle for that, so you'll have a chance to get this. But what we know from years of research, all the way back to Krashen and comprehensible input back in the 1980s, is that students need that input. And what you heard Tan and then a lot of what came up in the chat talk about with explicit instruction is really about that comprehensible input. Can we make the Island of the Blue Dolphin understandable? And yes, that's necessary, but it's not explicit in the output side. So on the input, the output side, we have to give kids the opportunity to explicitly talk about, write about, and use the language of that text or for the text they're going to write. Input is all the ways that we help students read and listen. We do mini lessons and simulations. We model, we do videos. We want them to learn and comprehend that academic text. And whether that's literature or whether it's science or social studies or a math word problem, they need input for sure to understand the content and the text. And we need that give the students opportunities to output. And that output is the processing of the content as well as applying the academic language. So it's a dual purpose output. Students need to label and draw and build and gesture. That's all about comprehending what they just got as the input, like they're really processing it. And then we need to have them speaking and writing so they can apply new academic language. And if I could do if I could wave my magic wand on education right now, is that I would make that input into output loop much, much tighter. I would shorten it up. So what we often find, even in a mini lesson in first grade, I kid you not, I was just in the lesson, it was an 18-minute mini lesson that students got 18 minutes of input. And then the teacher said, go and output. And now you go and do it. Not enough structured, explicit instruction with me getting practice to output throughout. Thanks, Lori. Lori smashed the clap hand, so somebody's on page with me. So we really need, and there's books like Talk, Read, Talk, Write that have this input-output loop. There's a lot out there about how do we tighten up, shorten that amount of input to give output. Notice how Tan and I are using the chat as our output. We are intentionally chunking this keynote as well. All All right, so that's what we're doing is how do we get to that output and explicitly apply academic language in the output? Thanks, Alice, about pacing lessons with scripted curriculum. It's one, thank you, I love that. It's one of the things that I do a lot of is come in and we're using benchmark or we're using wonders or we're using whatever the scripted curriculum is, we're using CKLA. How do we chunk it? Here's a tiny piece of input from the script, boom, right into student output. And that could be in 2 to 3 minute loops. And that output, again, to dual purpose. One, do I comprehend what was just given? And two, can I use and apply that academic language? All right, Todd.
And I see that Rocio said, I love the visual. We're going to give you the slides, actually. So you can keep it and use it as needed momentarily. So let's jump into grade 5 with me. So if I was teaching grade 5 with the new approach with thinking about developing academic language for all students, this is what I would do. Students, today, let's begin reading The Island of the Blue Dolphin. I'm going to read it out loud for you. I remember the day the Elliot ship came to our island. At first, it seemed like a small shell afloat on the sea. Then it grew larger and was a gull with folded wings. At last, in the rising sun, it became what it really was, a red ship with 2 red sails. So this is what I would do now. I'm going to do something called a structured quick write. So I read a segment of text, and that's input, and I immediately stop after that section and say, let's comprehend it. But I don't just say, let me give you a question. You're going to answer, and then we're going to move on. No, I'm going to actually have students write it out or say it out loud, both. Okay. So I'm going to give them the prompt. Summarize what the narrator saw. Use noun, verb, detail, comma, but, noun, verb, detail structure. This is assuming that my students have already, this is like, pretend that I've already taught noun, verb, detail, simple sentence structures with my students. Okay? So type in the group chat, everybody. Guiding question. What did the narrator think she saw? Can you type in the group chat and look at the text if you need?
At first.
At first, yes. What did the character think she saw at first? Yes. A shell, a small shell, perfect. Can you use something called sentence mirroring to use the words in the question, guiding question, to use the full sentence? Use the words in the question to write a full sentence now. Yes, the narrator thought she saw a shell. Perfect. Thank you. That's much more complete. Notice how we're not telling students, okay, kids, go and give me a complete sentence. We're specifically saying, use the strategy called sentence mirroring to use the words from the guiding question in your answer. Great. What was it actually? What did the narrator actually see? Can you type in the group chat? Yes, I see it.
So
It was
actually, they said it was actually a ship with 2 red sails. It was actually a red ship. Yeah.
perfect. And in my class, I would actually do this. So I would write the first question. The narrator thought she saw a shell floating on the sea. Okay. What she actually saw, so she actually saw a ship with 2 red sails. Now, can you combine these 2 sentences that we wrote together with a comma but? Can you do that in the group chat?
Already doing it in the group chat. The narrator thought she saw a red shell or a shell, but it was actually a red ship or a
Absolutely. Fabulous. Now that we're going to combine these 2 sentences, the she isn't capitalized anymore because there's a comma. You hear the but. The narrator thought she saw a shell floating on the Red Sea, but she actually saw a ship with 2 sails. Perfect. I would say, like, turn talk to your partners, read the sentences aloud, go. And that's what they would do. Okay? To get that practice. Remember, say the comma out loud. So go, okay, perfect. Let's go to the next class. Let's keep reading the next.
if I can just interject, because For those of you who have never heard of NVD, that's Tan's introduction to a simple sentence structure. He would have taught that already, noun, verb, detail, that the students will have learned what a basic beginning sentence is, just a simple sentence. And then he teaches them how to do a compound sentence by giving them the structure, a simple sentence with a but or a so or a, an and then a simple sentence. And so the combination is putting two basic sentences together with a structure. And it's really structured and taught explicitly. So before he would do this, they will already have learned what a basic simple sentence is with the noun verb detail.
Perfect. Thanks. Let's continue to read the text. My brother and I had gone to the header. Who's I again? That's the, type in the group chat, that's the narrator. You got it. Perfect. So I'm checking for comprehension. My brother and I had gone to the head of the canyon with winds down to a little harbor, which is called Coral Cove. We had gone to gather roots that grow there in the spring. Okay. So let's do another structured quick write and let's follow this model again. I'm not going to type in the group chat, but you pretend that I'm going to type in the cell. Summarize a chore the characters have to do during spring. Use since, comma, now verb detail. Now that we're going to move a little more complex, we're going to teach them complex sentences. Guiding question 1, what season it is? Type in the group chat with a full sentence. Don't use the word since yet. What season is it?
So we're just answering guiding question 1. It is spring.
Perfect. That's it. Let's move to the next one. And I would type that down. It is spring. What are the characters looking for in Coral Cove? Use sentence mirroring to start your sentence. What are the characters looking for in Coral Cove?
Characters are looking for roots in Coral Cove.
Perfect. Now, can you do this? Can you start the combined sentence with since? Use guiding question 1 and then add guiding question 2. Remember the comma.
And Mary is super fast. Since it is spring, the characters are looking for roots. Since it is spring, they are looking for roots. Since it is spring, they're looking for roots in Coral Cove. Yep.
Yes.
Since the characters are looking for roots. Excellent. Yep.
You got it. See, notice how while the sentence structure is identical, there's some word varieties, which is perfect. This is why we bring students assets in. They can tell us what words they already know, and they can see sentence variety as well. Fabulous. And the most important part of structured quick write is that we're co-writing this in the beginning and then slowly not co-writing with them by me taking away the guiding question for students. Students should be able to know that. Okay? So here are the parts of the structured quick write, which Beth already talked about. It's
Can
so
I stop
important
for
that
just a second, Tom, because Shilpa has written in the chat a key, and I think you need to address it right now. She said this is very similar to the writing revolution, but scaffolded for multilingual learners.
Absolutely. This is when I read I still remember in June reading this like 3 days after I landed from my school from taking a break. I was reading it in my neighborhood on my Kindle. I was reading chapter 1 and 2, interaction review. I had to stop, go home to my house and rewrite all my lessons with and but so. They showed you the sentence structure to use, but they didn't show you how to do a structured quick write, which our MLs really need. Right? So I bow humbly to the writing revolution authors. Right? So let's look. A prompt has a thinking verb, always has a thinking verb, not who, what, where, when, how, because our students need to hear academic verbs and understand that summarize is different than contrast, that's different than analyze, that's different than evaluate. They need to have then comprehension of the content. It's not just, tell me a time when you went and did chores with your siblings, right? And then here they have a very specific sentence structure. Beth said if she could wave a magic wand and everyone could do input, output, my magic wand was, anytime you ask a question, can you please specify a sentence structure? Let me say that again. Anytime you ask a response, can you ask students to give you a sentence structure, define a sentence structure for you? So how do we do that? We give them a guiding question first. Guiding question 1 answers the first part of the sentence structure. Guiding question 2 answers the second part, and together they now have written a complex sentence. Co-written with us as they give ideas, I'm co-writing, and then they're hearing me write the sentence, and they're seeing how to write it grammatically correct.
And Tan, what's coming up in the chat is really lovely from Lori as she's saying, this is what my co-teacher and I are missing, is this structure. And yes, we pose lots of comprehension questions, but if the students aren't given the structure for how to expand their sentences in their responses into more complex thinking, then they aren't given that opportunity to apply the academic language and structures in their answers for comprehension.
Exactly. And that's when, at the same time I was reading the Writing Revolution, people were saying, oh, the writing rope, the writing rope. So I picked that up and I saw something called sentence combining. And I was like, oh, let's put sentence combining from Dr. Joanne Sedita, and let's put it with the Writing Revolution. And that's how I came up with the structured quick write. So how does it work? It's an integrated process. Notice how I was reading the text out loud, asking you to say things out loud with me. And then I had you write things. As you were writing things, you were rereading the text to get the information. Normally, once I teach this structure, like since and noun verb detail, I eventually have my students work collaboratively in groups. Then in the future, I have them working collaboratively in pairs. Then they'll be able to work individually. So they're actually, I assign this, they turn talk, they say these things, and then they just give me a combined sentence using the since. And then I look at their writing. We look at their writing together as a group. That's how we do it. It's integrated because of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So we read a segment of text out loud, just like you normally do anyways. You ask students prompting questions to check their understanding, just like you do anyways. But now we're asking you to use a very specific sentence structure when you segment the pausing and you're asking students, hey, let's think about this text. Give me the information about this text. Now we say, give me the information using comma and or comma but or comma so. That's just some examples. And then we repeat the process again, because every new segment is developing a new sentence structure or the same sentence structure for students. So does this, okay, let me just pause. What are your thoughts about the structure? Now, some people are already writing like, this is the writing revolution, but please summarize what you've noticed. Please give me a comma and, comma but, or comma so in your response. What do you notice about the use of the structured quick write that I modeled for you? Use a comma and, or comma but, or comma so, or use the word since.
Mariela is saying that you are giving us the chance to, and the students to think and respond. It's like the writing revolution, but it integrates content and a language objective. Yay! I really like noun verb detail. I can easily incorporate this seamlessly with interactive grammar word wall in the classroom. I love how you scaffold the complex and compound sentence writing skills and reading comprehension instruction. That meshing or integration is all there. They're seeing it. It gives ELLs a clear guide to answering the prompt, so there is little room for confusion. Love it. The process scaffolds both. Let's see, the process scaffolds both thinking and writing, so it's an amplified version of the writing revolution. Alice says it's the most explicit way to teach, and students will be so engaged. The structure is a guide, but not overly scripted. And yes, Esther, it's you choose what the structure is based on what kind of prompt you give, right? Like, what's the answer asking for? Is this a compare contrast kind of prompt? Is this a cause and effect kind of prompt? It makes us think as well. It gets students to think time along with a model. It's helpful for students to move from simple sentence to compound and complex structures. Jill is asking a great question. Do students eventually learn to apply the structures on their own? And
Oh
I
my,
have to have Tom tell the story. Yeah.
Beth, go ahead, Beth.
No, I've gotten to see it. I was in Cambodia in the fall and got to watch Tan's students in his classroom, but I also got to see their writing from other classrooms. And Tan always sends me screenshots of their writing because I didn't prompt them, and they're using since or although or while or their structures that he has taught in his classroom. But Tan, go ahead.
Okay, so let's go to there right now. So how do we know this works? This is from a grade 7 student. This grade 7 student has only been in English speaking schools for 2 years. This student has only been in our international school for 2 years. Before that, she has only learned Khmer, which is fabulous because their structures are transferable. But this is her second year of English. So we have been using and, but, so, a lot of structures, however, although, therefore. And I constantly ask them, when you want to rewrite this, when you want to express your information, can you use abs, and, but, so, or hat, however, additionally, therefore, in your writing? Um, Sometimes they use it, and this is an example. The teacher, the 7th grade art teacher said, go pick a portrait, a famous portrait that you want to look at. She gave many. She picked this one. Then the content that the teacher said, tell me about the techniques, the context. And this is the local context. Is that he did this in a hospital in France. It's a portrait of Vincent van Gogh. And look at what she wrote. And this is without me prompting, because I was in another class. The emotion that he used in the portrait is sadness and troubled. So he put the color green and blue to make it feel lonely with warm face. Where did she get this information? She got it from using research, using AI to make it accessible to her. But I told her, do not copy the words from the text. And so she says, how can I write then? She said, I told her, and, but, so, in my other classes. And this is what, again, this is not prompted.
And
Let me go
Tan,
to
if
the next part.
can
Yes.
also say that you also taught her the sentence mirroring strategy. Mary
Yes.
Sandoval was saying that instead of giving them a sentence starter or a frame, they have more opportunities to practice and apply. And she is also using that where she said the emotion is like she knew she had to talk about emotion and other things. So
Yes, exactly. I'm not there, and my students are using sentence mirroring. This is her second year in English. She's using right away sentence mirroring, right? And you could see this. The portrait made when he had no money. He started to draw himself after he cut his ear. So the drawing his help him replace the madism to help himself for confident for the artist. The reason why he cut his ear is because he fought with his friend, artist called Paul Gowan. After the fight, Van Gogh is mental illness of the fight, and he was in the hospital to make him feel better. Van Gogh wanted to feel full of energy and strong emotions like sadness, so he used thick brush strokes or a bright oil paint on canvas. Content-specific words.
it's
Use with,
beautiful.
go ahead,
Yeah,
Beth. Why is it
sorry.
beautiful?
There's a question in the chat about sentence mirroring and structure. And the question is, would you teach sentence mirroring first or the structure or both at the same time? Because they're noticing that this student in year 2 is doing both. And question on how you got the student there.
Yeah, I teach sentence mirroring with noun verb detail. So noun verb detail goes first. The character did this, blah, blah, blah. The character went to pick uh, roots. Her brother went with her. So like that. And then we then taught students now sentence mirroring. Your sentence mirroring automatically somehow becomes noun verb detail. Watch. Van Gogh wanted to. The portrait made. The emotion that he used. It's automatically noun verb detail. Is that cool? Okay. So what is the main thing we want to share with you in the last few minutes? It's that academic literacy needs to be systematically planned and explicitly taught, not assigned like I was assigned. I was just assigned, go write a report about the island of the blue dolphin. Those were the only instructions. And I was like, I don't know where to begin. Many of your students say that too, right? And then I would say, my students, before I learned the structure, they would say, can you give me a sentence frame? Can you give me a sentence starter? Can you give me a paragraph frame? Right? this is when before I use this, my students would ask me this and they would constantly be dependent upon me. But now I teach the structures. It's not assumed that they know how to do this. It's not workbooked. It's not workshopped. It's not just a hope, but it's an aspect that something that we can actually teach. It's explicitly taught in our notebook. So go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Mariel is asking about similar concepts using math. And so when students respond to how did you solve this problem, that's when it fits the best is explain how. There are structures for I did it by ing or first I, then I. So when that explain how comes up in math, this is where it would fit in.
Right.
This book, The Integrated Literacy for Experienced Multilinguals, is directly for ELD teachers who have a block with this group of experienced multilinguals or they're co-teaching in an English language arts class. Tan, anything else to say about math? I just want to address
Yes. My thing that I love about math the most is the word describe something, ... or compare blank to blank. So it's describe this type of triangle and that, the similarities, and they would use noun, verb, detail, comma, and noun, verb, detail. Okay. When they compare, they can use, because the differences, noun, verb, detail, sorry, it's slow, noun, verb, detail, comma, but, noun, verb, detail. Here is an example. A right triangle has a 90-degree angle, comma, but an acute triangle has an angle that is less than 90 degrees. I just compared and contrast two types of triangle, right? And that's how I use that. For my comma so, I often use explain. Why did you convert? Why did you have to convert? Explain why you changed the fraction so that the denominators are the same. And this is noun, verb, detail, comma, so, noun, verb, detail. I had to change the denominator so that they're the same. So I could able to add the numerators. There you go. See, that's how I use it in math.
Thanks, Tom. I knew you'd have a quick example for that as well, and it does apply, but the book is directed for our English language development teachers specifically at this point. So what might happen if experienced multilinguals don't receive this kind of systematic, explicit instruction that really teaches the structures they need to respond to prompts, and whether it's a single sentence or a multi-paragraph. And this is where it's on us, right, to create that. Tan, what are some of the results? Is that unfortunately the graduation rates are not great. So nationwide, if the latest from 2015 that we grabbed, it was 84%. I think we're up a little bit more. The EL overall graduation rate for non-ELs is 85%, but that means that for English language learners, the graduation rate in general in the nation, in the US, is really only at 67%. And there have been some subgroups where long-term Ls, those that have been in the system for 5 or more years, that their graduation rate is actually much lower. And that's surprising. And one of the questions that came up in the chat is about how do we talk about not translating? Well, it's about who this subgroup is that this subgroup may or may not be able to read and write in their home language unless they've been in a dual language program, unless they've had outside of our public education in the US or outside of the English medium and education that we're providing. They may not have that literacy. And so we're providing them another text that they still can't access. Instead, we have to do that quick input-output loop with explicit instruction in how to output, providing them that. And Tan's story is also revealing about what happens if we don't have that explicit instruction.
Right. I graduated. I am an exception to the statistic because while I was at a great public school, and I love my public school, it's considered one of the best in Pennsylvania because of the resources, because it's a high tax revenue area, highly resourced. I am an exception to the statistic. I should have not graduated high school. I should have not gone to the university because my English was so underdeveloped. My social language was absolutely fluent. I mean, I could pedazzle you and I could charm you, but I could not charm the SAT, the ACT, or when I took my praxis test, I could not charm the praxis test into giving me an A, to getting me to pass. And that's why I am an exception to the statistic because I figured out by myself how to write academic English. But your students should not be uh, 28 getting their master's degree to figure this out. They should know it in grades 3, 4, 5, all the way to grade 12. So there's no more exceptions to the statistics. So we have something for you. A book, we have 20% for you off, but actually it's 25 with Raven Code. Can I just tell you, whenever I show the book, I have to tell people. Beth and I make basically no money in the book. We get $2. Then that $2 is split, so we each get $1. Then that dollar is then taxed, so we get like 70 cents per dollar. And so I can work at Zara and she could be a yoga teacher or a hiking instructor and make so much more money. She'll have amazing calves and good, like great weather. And I would have really nice clothing at Zara. We make no money on the book. We just want to give students the different experience, right? So with that, if there's a winner, Beth is going to pick the winner for this. And that code takes you to the book if you want to pre-order, it's fine. And then Beth is going to have this person email me and we'll get your address and then we'll send it to Corwin when it's published in April.
Woohoo! The chat has been so active. Thank you, everyone, for all your comments, for your questions, for responding as we gave you opportunities to output. We so appreciate you. And it's so hard to choose. I just randomly went through and it's like, Rocio, you jumped out. So, Rocio, if you would send your send the email to Tan at Tan Win, Tan K Win, and he will get you set up for the book. And everybody's a winner because everybody gets a special discount code, 25% off Raven 25. You can all pre-order now. This is specially for this workshop. So congratulations, everybody's a winner. Thank you so much for being here.
And we'll send you the link here on the code as well as the next part. So we always give an anonymous survey. Beth and I and our therapist will be reading the survey results with each other. Please take a few seconds to do the survey, and then we'll return it back to our colleagues at Molloy. We just want to say thank you for showing up from Morocco, Laos, China, Japan. It is like 1 a.m, y'all. I don't know how they do this. Or people in the West Coast, it is like way too early. We needed like 5 espressos. So thank you for being here for your students.
Thank you so much. And there's a question from somebody asking, is this a continuation of our book? Patty, the way that it's the same is that it's the same subgroup of students, the experienced multilinguals, which are the largest subgroup in most places across the US and even in international schools. Newcomers get a lot of love and they should, but these students are often that forgotten category. They're still taking the English language proficiency exam, but not passing. And so this book was inspired by you, the field. When Tan and I were working with our first book, it was meant for the math teacher, science teacher, social studies teacher, but many of the English language development teachers that we worked with said, can you please write a book for us? What are we doing with experienced multilinguals when they're beyond that beginner stage? And how do we move them? Isn't this more like English language arts? In fact, one of the readers of the book from Corwin, they put it out for peer review. And one of our original readers said, this book is for English language arts teachers, not for English language development teachers. And we find that it's a really nice match, especially for those of you who are co-teaching in a grade level English language arts class. So that's the target audience, and that's how it connects, but also extends from the first book. Tan, anything else on that?
Yeah, I almost want to show you like in our book, we showed you how to like teach at the vocabulary level, sentence, then organization in unit 1. Then we show you how to do that and build it into unit 2. Then do that and you build it into 3 and 4. So really by the end of 1 year, your students should be able to move from WIDA 3 to at least WIDA 4, if not more. So that's what we're trying to share.
And then Tom, they would like the QR code back.
Oh, okay.
And somebody was having difficulty accessing the link to the feedback survey, if you want to drop that in the chat.
Oh, okay. Sure. Survey.
We are so honored that Andrea and Molloy College and the whole team at Molloy has asked us to kick off this symposium on our experienced multilinguals, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your conference.
Thank you very much. That was really such a wonderful opportunity to hear about all these amazing strategies that we can really take back to the classroom. So thank you for sharing that. We very much appreciate it. I'm going to turn it over to the fabulous Dr. Honigsfeld. She's going to share the Ignite session with us.
Well, good morning, everyone, and a huge thank you and appreciation to Beth and Tan from me as well. And just one more appreciation to Dr. Melissa McCardle and Dr. Carrie McDermott Goldman for opening up our conference with such grace and review of our history. So I'm super excited to facilitate the Ignite session. And just a quick yes or no in the chat box, if you even know what's going to happen next, if you maybe participated in our virtual sessions in the past, if you know what's going to be, what is this all going to be about? I'm not seeing any yeses or nos. I just hear a no idea. Well, that's even more exciting for me to tell you about it because we adapted, changed up the Ignite presentation feature from previous conferences that we attended. And what it is basically a teaser, a very, very short teaser of all of our breakout sessions. So we know that you're going to have to choose 2. You're either going to go to breakout 1 and one of those 4 sessions, and then breakout 2, one of those 4 sessions. And you might always be thinking about, but what is happening in the other breakouts? There's always that push and pull. I should really be going to another session. I want to hear something else as well. This way, during our Ignite session, you get to hear about all 8 presentations. So I am going to now go in this order. As you could see, today's schedule is now previewed again for you. You'll see that we're going to have, after this Ignite, a 5-minute transition time. So I'm going to be finished with this part with you by around 9:45 Eastern time. Then you transition and you'll start your first breakout session. So let's get started. Maria, take it away. For about 2 minutes, each presenter will introduce what their breakout workshop is going to be all about. And Maria is going to get started.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Dove, and I'm from Molloy University. And my session is titled Supporting Long-Term English Learners or Experienced Multilinguals Through Instructional Scaffolding. Now, many of us work with multilingual learners who we see seemingly plateau. And we want to really think about how we can determine why this sometimes happens, and more importantly, what can we do differently? So in this session, I'm going to frame the conversation around a shift from simplification to amplification. Now, instead of reducing complexity, we will explore how to carefully design scaffolds which can preserve rigor as well as increase access. We're going to talk a lot about access, and access being the key to the success of experienced multilinguals. So drawing on the work of Ida Waki and George Bunch, we'll explore some examples that help us distinguish between which supports actually unintentionally maybe dilute learning for our multilingual learners, and those that actually expand their opportunities. The session also introduces a multidimensional approach to scaffolding and connects each dimension to specific challenges long-term learners, English learners face. So my goal is for participants to leave with practical ideas to design lessons that maintain cognitive demand, build academic language, and position multilingual learners as capable thinkers and doers. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you, Maria. So the next very brief Ignite is going to come from me and two of my co-presenters, and I'm going to ask them in a moment to briefly introduce themselves. But as you could see from this diagram, we're also building on an existing well-regarded research. Actually, we all stand on giants' shoulders. So this framework that you're looking at comes to us from Dr. Margot Gottlieb, who identified in a recent publication, which is hyperlinked for you, how identity formation for our multilingual learners has three different but equally important dimensions, and that multilingualism is strengthened through metacultural, metalinguistic, and metacognitive awareness. So our session is designed to make a compelling case that for our long-term multilingual learners, our experienced multilingual learners, will need to pay attention to these meta skills, the meta awareness skills across these three dimensions. And now, Amy and Elizabeth, could you please come on for a moment?
Sure. Hello. My name is Amy Eckelman. I am an ENL, or English as a New Language teacher in Rockville Center, New York on Long Island. I am also an adjunct professor here at Molloy University, where I teach in the TESOL Pathways program. Finally, I am also an editor and a publisher of the Journal for Leadership and Instruction, which is an academic journal in regards to all different aspects of educational leadership.
And you're going to be giving the elementary examples.
I will be giving the elementary aspect of this presentation. I would love to share all that I can possible in regards to elementary education.
Thank you.
And I'm Elizabeth Choi. I am on the front lines in an ELD, English Language Development Classroom in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I'm going to be sharing some of these strategies and approaches that have been vetted in a 6 through 8 middle school classroom, but that I think could also be applied in the high school setting and have shown students are successful and also enjoy engaging in these things.
Thank you so much. Our next Ignite is Katie Levin.
Hello, everyone. I have to agree with Sheena that says all of these presentations looks absolutely wonderful. My presentation is focusing on the MTSS, or previously called RTI cycle. And this graphic is just one of a series of graphics from the resource I will provide from the government that show how we need to make sure our MTSS system is serving our English language learners, particularly our long-term Ls. And how do we do this? You need to be able to back up these charts with an explanation that makes sense to your colleagues. And we also need the data to prove it. I will not allow my children to fall through the cracks. Yes, I have 2 blood children, but I have so many children of the heart that I will fight tooth and nail for. And so that's what my session is bringing, this educational piece of how do we educate our colleagues. And I have to thank Mary Sandoval because, you know, she was the one who really inspired me when I was lost, when I was struggling in our district for how to support our long-term Ls and work in the system when the system isn't working for our kids. And so I want us to talk. I want everyone to bring ideas, but I also have speaking strategies built into the whole session, along with some data analysis that everyone will be able to look at. And even if you can't attend, Everything's going to be in the Padlet. I sent it to Dr. Goldman this morning, and I'm just so excited to be here today. And it's going to be powerful if you can attend. But I totally understand if you want to go hang with some other amazing people that I would love to, fangirl on. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for highlighting our special feature of this virtual symposium, which is a Padlet. And we're going to talk about that a little later. But let's continue with Faith Tripp, our next Ignite.
Good morning, everyone. So glad that you can be here to join us. This morning, I will be speaking about the Seal of Biliteracy. And while specifically a lot of my data is aligned to the New York State Seal of Biliteracy, as we know, it actually began in California, and the information that I'm sharing is applicable to our participants from across the United States. But some of the things that I want to focus on are how specifically the seal can affirm students' linguistic assets, how students can be seen as coming to the table with, so much to offer, and how can we recognize and honor these linguistic and cultural assets that our students bring. Thinking about our long-term Ls, they've been navigating two languages for many, many years, and the Seal of Biliteracy serves as a way to recognize those two languages at minimum. Sometimes students speak more than two languages. So we're going to have a conversation. This will definitely be a conversational kind of presentation where we can work through ideas for people who want to look to start a Seal of Biliteracy program, for those who have one and want to strengthen it, and for those who have a thriving program to share with their colleagues. So I just wanted to put that out there that this is going to be conversational, and we'll provide many suggestions for you how to advocate for the SEAL, how to grow your SEAL program, with that focus that it was originally intended for, which is to affirm the students' identities, their cultural, linguistic identities, and create a sense of belonging for all of our students in a way that is officially recognized and honored on their transcripts and by the school community.
Thank you so much, Faith. And it always happens that you're scheduled opposite people that you also want to see and hear and engage with. And I'm also very proud to tell you that in New York State, I am the Hungarian examiner for Seal of Biliteracy. I guess it's very hard to find a qualified speaker of Hungarian to also do that examination. So such important work. Thank you so much. And in the meantime, Sabrina posted our Padlet. So just all of our participants, we know that you're thinking the same thing, that you wanted to go to all of the sessions so far. So you will have access to all the resources that our presenters have generously shared on Padlet. So let's continue with Mr. Coniglione.
Good morning, everyone. I will be discussing some of the real complex issues that our long-term English language learners are faced with in our school districts. My background has been mostly as a high school principal. I'm being forced with developing a whole new program for a huge influx of English language learners that came into our district, and really focusing on how important collaboration is to make sure that we're really meeting the needs of not only the students, but the teachers as well. And really developing a program that really highlights the culture of the students that are coming in, discussing the scheduling aspects of how do we meet the needs of the students through scheduling and the challenges that come along with that as well as some of the understanding of the obstacles that our students are faced, and how we really target those obstacles to help students be successful and hopefully venture on past our ENL programs.
Thank you so much. And you just have to allow me to give you a very special thank you, because you invited us, you allowed us, you appreciated us in your building when you were that high school principal in Comstock. And we have filmed extensively and featured your teachers, yourself, your students in our co-teaching book. So indeed, collaboration is a critical part of this work.
And
so let's continue with Adeline and Kate.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here. It really is an honor. Our presentation is scaffolding that supports long-term Ls. So Dr. Dove, I will try to do your presentation some sort of justice in the second part of the meeting of today. Those are some pretty big shoes to fill after you. Kate and I are ENL teachers in the Baldwin School District. I was from high school and now I'm in middle school, and Kate brings elementary experience. So our presentation is going to focus on scaffolding, and it's intentional. Scaffolding is intentional. It's temporary support that helps our long-term Ls leverage rigorous grade level content without lowering our expectations. So in our presentation, we're going to go through who are long-term Ls really quickly and a few strategies, language scaffolds, instructional scaffolds, as well as collaborative scaffolds that will help our long-term Ls to be more successful and to keep filling their toolbox, as I call it, to continue their growth on their language journey.
Thank you so much. Mary, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. What an honor to be here today. I'm so grateful to be with all of our amazing colleagues across the state and the country and the world. And in the session that I'm leading in workshop section 2, we're going to be thinking about what shifts we can make in our instructional practice. Often as teachers, we might be reminded of the practices that we used to use, or we're doing something similar. And so by being intentional and thoughtful about the way we prepare instruction, we can really shift towards that explicit instruction that our students need. And we'll look a little bit at the data in our state in particular, and really the importance of this work to continue to provide the highest quality instruction and education for our English learners, specifically those who are long-term, or who I so lovingly call persistent learners, because they really are courageous to keep learning and keep looking for success in the areas of their education. So I look forward to seeing you.
And thank you so much for introducing yet another asset-based terminology for us to better understand the unique needs of this subgroup. Last but definitely not least, a dear friend, colleague, supporter of our Molloy CRITI program, Xiomara, and all of you. I don't even know how long I have known you, but we're so grateful that you are joining us today for a workshop.
Thank you. Thank you. Very long time. My name is Xiomara Flowers. Presently, I'm a dual language third grade teacher. I'm an adjunct professor, loving it at Molloy as well, university. I am the first bilingual teacher in the Uniondale School District. It's year 30. I've been doing this for a minute. And I'm also the 2024 New York State bilingual teacher of the year. So I think I carry a couple of things in my toolbox. And I'm also a multilingual learner. So one of the things that I want to do today is really to discuss instruction that moves the needle. Unfortunately, too often the needle stays stuck, and we don't know as educators sometimes, or as professionals, what do I do? Am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? And so from my years of experience, what my plan is for today is to show us how to become ready, how to do the things that our scholars need, the strategies that they need to grow, to move that needle, for that needle no longer to become stuck, for that needle to be able to move successfully. And I'm not talking from a textbook. I'm talking as a student myself, as a multilingual learner. I'm not talking about something that I read, but I walked it through. And so some of those things I want all of us to really begin to dive into it and try to figure out what are the things, what makes some teachers move that needle, and what make others struggling with that needle. And instead, oftentimes, they poke themselves with the needle. So those are some of the pieces that I really want us to have the confidence. And my plan for today is not to give you something that you can do in September. My plans are for you to do it today. For you on Monday morning, when you get to your school, you'll remember Miss Flowers suggested that you can go in and try this out. Try this out before the test. You can try it out if you're in elementary, if you're in middle school, or if you're in high school. So it is a toolkit to prepare you for today, not tomorrow.
Thank you so much. I'd like to hear in the chat box if you are as excited about the day as I am. And again, this is the overview of the entire schedule. I'm going to pass it back to Dr. McDermott Goldman to guide us through the next step. How are we going to end up in these different sessions and anything else that she wishes to share with you?
Thank you, Andrea. Let me share my screen. Okay. So this is the schedule for today. You'll notice the QR code up in the upper left corner and the tiny URL as well. That will bring you to our Padlet. That has all of the information for today, including the program. Sabrina is going to place our program into the chat box in addition to the link for the Padlet, just in case you're not able to access it this way. Each of the breakout rooms is identified by the room number and the title that goes along with it. So you'll be able to, once I open the rooms, you'll be able to enter whatever room that you choose. Throughout the workshops, you'll be able to go from one room to another if you need. We will have somebody monitoring the main room in case you get bumped off of Zoom for some reason. We will be able to get you back in and get you to where you would like to be as soon as possible. We will have a little bit of a transition, a couple of minutes. You'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, there'll be a short transition to get you into your rooms by 9:50.